you had evals every year, and you know what the maximum raise that they would give you was 25 cents.
There's something special about your love. I think it's one of a kind.
That is, you know what? Let's get into. I have another topic. Protecting your peace, right? Two elements of it. When it's time to walk away from your department versus your specialty versus your hospital versus when it's time to walk away from nursing.
Yeah.
Okay? Those are two different things, right? So remember, walk away from the department, the specialty, the hospital. For me, I understood walking away from the department, the last department I worked for, and that I tried my best to get off of that floor. It was horrible. I did enjoy the specialty, and that is actually one of the specialties that I work with now. So I still enjoy the specialty. I should have let go of the hospital, even though it was like, again, tied to this like hospital system that my father worked at and my sister and my aunts worked at. Like, it was something to be proud of, right? But I should have said, you know what, I need to walk away from that.
But even leaving and coming back, like, yo, like one of the things that we need to talk about now is like our nursing is different from our parents or like our grandparents nursing. So this whole like, oh, I've been at this hospital sitting for 12 years. Listen, if you at anywhere for longer than 2 years, I'm going to tell you something. Shop around. I'm not saying to leave, but shop around.
Yeah.
Because
know
even
your
if
worth.
you love where you
your
love
worth.
it. Yeah.
Know your worth and know that, like, especially in this day and age, I'm always telling my babies, like, yo, get your year, the least.
Yeah.
2 years, kind of cement that specialty and that confidence, and then you travel. Go anywhere.
You could travel, or you
like,
you could even have the intention of coming back, right?
Yeah, I'm not saying to be a travel nurse and like you go like I do 13 weeks everywhere. I've been to every state. I'm not saying that. I'm saying travel and know like, okay, well, I could just go to another hospital.
Something else.
I could go to another county. Like, oh, they're paying me $5 more over here, and I have one less patient. That is mind-blowing when it comes to, to some hospitals.
Because you know what's sad about that is that we have now become the generation where they treat you like cell phone carriers. They reward you for being new there. So it's like, sometimes you got to leave that hospital system. You got to leave H&H hospital system, even though you love it, because when you leave there and go somewhere else where they're willing to hire you into the specialty that you want to do for H&H, right? A and B hire you over there and they'll give you a bump and raise, and then when you go back to H&H...
Let me tell you a joke. I left a hospital, getting paid good money, left, right? Came back, how many months later? Couple months later, and they rehired me and I got a raise, and I was like, if I was still working there, you think I wouldn't have gotten that raise?
You might have gotten a raise, but not that raise.
They would have given me a couple cents raise. They wouldn't have given me $5 raise. It was a $5 raise. They wouldn't have been given like.
And the worst thing is, you didn't even leave them to go to somewhere else.
I didn't.
You just took like a break and came back. Like, that was the worst thing.
So that's the thing. It's like, knowing that and being like aware of that. I knew someone that left one of our old hospitals, right, and went to another hospital for 6 months.
Yeah, exactly.
And
6
came
to 12
back
months.
and got in like an associate nurse manager position, an assistant nurse manager position.
What I thought Lisa was gonna bring up was the other thing they'll do is like they'll wait till you're like about to leave and you put in your like 2 to 4 weeks, and then they want to match what you're like, fam, if you had just did that, I wouldn't be leaving.
Well, no. Okay, so my first job that I gave my 2 weeks, and I was so afraid because, I was like, oh, I don't want anybody to come talk to me about it. So I put, the letter in the nurse manager's door, right? And I was like, okay. I did like right before I left, right? She called me. She was like, Lisa, we were going to start training you to be, charge, and, I see great potential in you, and what is this hospital that you're leaving for? What are they going to pay you? I will give you that and more, right? And I was like...
But you wouldn't have got that offer unless you put in 2 weeks.
But that's so degrading. It makes me... And even to this moment, it still made me angry. Because it shows that you have the ability and the stretch to take care of your staff. To go above and beyond and say, you know what, I want to pay you more.
But why
right?
are they're not incentivized?
They're not. They're like, oh, well, you're going to take the and back, like, you're going to laugh. Back then it was like $23, $24 or something like that. As a brand new nurse. No, I think it was like $22, $23, something like that. Right? And I was leaving for this hospital and thinking like, oh, we making good money, like ah. And back then at that hospital, you had evals every year, and you know what the maximum raise that they would give you was 25 cents.
Because ultimately, acquisition is better than retention.
Yeah. So like the cell phone.
Yeah.
This is the cell phone.
Even though
metaphor.
you left before,
Yeah.
you left and you're coming back, you're an acquisition.
Yeah.
If you've left for a certain amount of time, you're a new hire.
Yeah.
In their book, right? Even though you might have even came back to a pension or to a retire, you are and acquisitions are more important to them than retention.
Yeah. Which
That's
is sad.
unfortunately
Which
how
is
they
something
do it.
that also is adds to that pool of burnout. Is you feel like, why are you not trying to maintain the people that are here? You know?
I don't care.
And some hospitals, like I've heard some horror stories. Some hospitals, some of these new nurses are coming in and making what you making, and you've been there 5-10 years, or making more than you, and that's sad.
Yo, one time I was working at this place, right? And this person was they were the manager for the night, right? Mm-hmm. And my coworker had hit the roof, and she told me this story, right? And she's like, yo, she walked up to him, she had it up to here. I looked at him, and I was like, I'm gonna effing quit. He jumped out of his chair, and he was like, no, check it out. He's mad chill, right? And he's like, or he was mad chill. I hope he's still like that. And he was like, no, go take a half an hour break, get your head together. And she's like, I'm over here drowning, blah, 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 whatever. And he just quickly, with a wave of a wand, he was like, yo, I'm going to get this person, come help you. Go take your break. This person will cover you. Da, 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 boom, boom, boom. Mm-hmm. And I thought it was good management on his part to do that, right? Yeah. But again, why I bring that up right after the 2 weeks and the whole we were gonna was the aggravation was he had the ability to do this before she had hit the roof, before she had hit the like.
Because that's where I'm saying this, the systemic continuation of it happening all the time. So do I have to say I'm gonna quit every night? How often do you take that to the point where you're like, again, asking yourself, is it time for me to walk away from the department, the specialty, the hospital, or the nursing profession? And I always tell people, like, never walk away, like, always keep your license.
Oh, but I agree. Keep your license.
There's a beauty behind, like, oh, there's so many different specialties, but the reality is some specialties are hard to get into. There's people that gatekeep that. They're, dialysis is one of those. Labor and delivery is another one that it's hard to get people in it. And because those people really don't retire. They're like, oh, I like my specialties, right? So it's like, is it okay to be like, nah, I'm retired? Like
you could say I'm arguing semantics here, right? But I'm going to say specifically, keep your license, but you might need to walk away from nursing, whether permanently or temporarily. Yeah. Because nursing is so broad that you might not have to be at bedside or in nursing and still need your license to do something totally different. Because
there's case management there's some case management that they want your nursing
tech is changing.
Profession.
There's a lot of things that you could do in.
If you want us to do a whole pod on that of like all the things that you could do in nursing, there's some things that I even forget. There is a place for everyone, but just be aware when you are getting those burnout symptoms or you're just like, I don't like this place. Know that you do have options out there. And to the babies out there, to the newbies, and I'm not talking about babies as in like you're young, because you could be 45 and like, oh, I just started nursing, and is this really what I want to do? Ask yourself those things. Go through the burnout questionnaires or things that I just kind of described here. And if it's something that you're like, yeah, I'm going through that, and you cannot process it through the psychiatrist that you're talking to, psychologist you're talking to, oh, I'm doing yoga, I'm meditating, I'm doing whatever you're doing on the outside to make yourself feel better, and it's not working, go through the steps of maybe I should be changing department.
And remember, a lot of
maybe
this is
I'm
subjective.
Specialty.
It's subjective, just like toxicity is subjective.
Yeah.
I worked in corrections, and there has been moments at other jobs that I've missed corrections. Yeah. And there's people that'll think corrections is toxic because you're in a hazardous I worked in a pre-trial jail, right? Where these people aren't always sentenced, so they are in the wildest they're trying to establish themselves.
They're saying
and
they're
trying
innocent.
to act
Well,
like,
I know, but they're like,
well, everybody
yeah.
in jail, according to them, is innocent. But like, it's also like they're not in the stretch yet. So a lot of the wildness and toughness and hyper masculinity and toxic behavior.
I'm gonna be out soon. Don't worry about me and like
because they're trying to establish their hierarchy. Whereas in like a longer term prison, they know they're there for a stretch. Yeah. They're a little bit more calm in situations. It's still a toxic, and to some other people, or to like the female nurses that were doing what I was doing, they were being subjected to sexual harassment that I wasn't getting from some of those male inmates, right? So like I could never really fully empathize with when they were getting burnout syndromes from like guys doing things to them that was like uncalled for. But that's why it's subjective. Like that to me wasn't as toxic as it was to the female nurses that were doing what I was doing. And then the RNs were living a totally different experience to the LPNs in corrections, right? Because they're doing a different job.
In the clinic,
they stay in the clinic while we were going up on the floors and having to give like 200 people different meds and all of this kind of stuff. Your burnout and your toxicity is up to what you tolerate and what is your brand. You might be okay with 5 patients and somebody else might be like, no, I can't do that.
Yeah, exactly.
You might be okay with not talking to your co-workers, and somebody else be like, no, that's where I draw the line at. Like, I can't go somewhere where I don't have any friends and whatever. You might be okay with, you know, a nurse manager that is this way, and it's like, oh, I don't really work with that nurse manager anyway. So it's all subjective. There's no one definitive thing that's going to set off every nurse. So some people might be looking at something, just being on night shift might be toxic to somebody.
Yes. Oh, I didn't even add that. I need to add that. So hospital, department, specialty, shift. Like some people might be like, you know what? Mid-shift works better for me.
You could be sold on the idea that you are like, yo, I'm not a night shift person, but you get up every morning and you're miserable as hell. You're drinking coffee, you're tired out of your mind, and then you switch to nights and you realize like, oh, well,
this is
where it's at. Like, I don't have this person breathing down my neck. It could be a small change. It could even be just the way you're doing your schedule. I've had a couple of people.
That's another one.
That's a
Damn,
couple
okay,
of people.
so again, hospital, specialty, department, shift, schedule.
Yeah.
I was working the first burnout, I was working Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. Maybe coming into work one day, off one day, off one day. That might work for you. Yeah. Change it. That is a big one.
Try changing small things before you think that like, oh, I gotta walk away from nursing. Before you go all the way up here, maybe I gotta change my shift. Maybe I just gotta change my schedule and stop working Mondays. Mondays ain't for me. Maybe I gotta avoid when this person is the nurse manager. And I don't really work well with their leadership. Right? So I gotta like, yo, Bob, when you work? You work Tuesday, Thursday, Friday? Okay, I can't work them days. Right? It could be a small change that'll keep you from burnout.
That's it. I'm telling you.
Corrections, I worked what they call a 3-4. Now I work a 3-3. So a 3-4 is we work 12-hour shifts, right? So 1 week you work 3 12s, so 36 hours, and the next week you work 4 12s. You work the 48 hours. So when I got down to 3-3, I was like, yes, this is awesome, right? Sometimes people will do is they'll bunch their days together. And what it'll do is even though you have this long block of days that you work, you end up with these long blocks of days off without requesting like time off. So it's like if you take your 3 days and put like Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, right? But you put it next to the end of your last one, which was I worked Friday, Saturday, and then I worked Sunday, Monday, Tuesday. I've worked 5 days straight, right? But I just knocked out my whole week.
From last week and this week coming,
all together. So next week, I could go all the way until like Thursday before I have to hit my first working day. And I was like, this is great. I'm off for 8 days and I'm not even scheduled. But like, by the time I hit like day 4, I'm like, bro, what the hell? I hate this thing and whatever. And I was like, yo, I gotta stop doing this. So I stopped doing that. I only bunched like 2 days together, and then I'd have one random day where I was work on and off, and that was enough to hold me back from a little bit of burnout. You know what was crazy was at a certain point I was like, nah, I gotta start bunching my days together again so I can have long strings of days off.
Like,
yeah,
because I had major burnouts. So like my second one, this was the first one or whatever. So the second one, I remember I was doing a bunch of overtime. And it's like when you do that, and I'm talking about 6 days off one day, because I'd be like, yo, I don't work Fridays, right? 6 days straight off one day, another 6 days straight. On your regular days to work, you're like, I want to call out. Yeah. But you can't because it's your regular day to work. And it's like, oh, well, I want to pay off my car insurance or whatever in one paycheck or whatever. So you have these like things tied to that. Like if you are the type of person like, I want to buy this new Louis Vuitton bag or whatever, or I'm going on a cruise, a 10-day cruise, which a lot of nurses and stuff like that, they do those because we have the ability to, because of how much money we make. We kind of can splurge some, right? So some people are willing to do some of these crazy 13 days and stuff like that. And it's like, yeah, you got a new Louis Vuitton bag, but was that worth it? And was that physically worth it? Was like, yeah, you got a financial gain.
Be. Like I said, it's subjective. It might be.
Where are you going? This is another thing. My old hospital, I haven't seen this here, but my old hospital, these same women that work in, women and men, let me not say it, but it was the women that were doing this, come to work with their Louis Vuitton bag and Fendi bag and stuff like that. Oh, all the work that you're doing, you bringing those designer bags to work? It's not like you're saying, I'm bringing that designer bag to go to like a fancy restaurant on South Beach, you know, like I'm going shopping on Rodeo this weekend.
What told
like
me that was corrections. It was like, I remember I had these like Bobo looking shoes, and like, you know, you'd have inmates that were cool and you'd have some inmates that would try to be like, what kind of shoes are those? And I was like, bro, you think I'm gonna wear something good to this job?
Yeah.
Like, look at what this is, bro.
Yeah.
Like, I'm coming to a jail.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, what do you think I'm gonna do? I mean, you think I'm gonna wear some Jordans in here? You think I'm gonna wear some Nike Shox in here? Like, what are you talking about?
Yeah.
So yeah, try small tweaks. The answer isn't always, I've got to leave nursing, even though it might be feeling that way when you're feeling burnout. You're like, maybe this job is not for me. But literally, maybe that particular job or that job at that time with that nurse manager, with that shift, maybe those things, or maybe that's all you need to do and change.
So to put weight on that comment is really that, like you said that so perfectly, is start with the small before you jump to I'm leaving nursing.
Yeah.
Like the other day I was speaking to a girlfriend of mine and she was talking about her friend who's like, I'm done. I'm leaving nursing. I'm not even going to renew my license. And I was like, no. I really wanted to be like, give me her number, all right? Because we gonna have a talk. Like, not saying that you not grown and you can't do what you want to do, but we worked so hard. Every single one, even no matter how you're like, oh, I was so smart. Nursing school was a thing for everybody, unless you bought your degree like some of these people. But it was a thing, right? It was something that wasn't the easiest. So don't lose track of that. You worked hard for it. You got where you are. There are nurses that are living it up in some specialty, in some hospital. Find what is going to fit for you, or find what you're going to be able to tolerate. But don't walk away from the profession, because besides that, like, it is a great profession, but it's like you are making a difference in like the future. Like, you're making a difference to people's health. That is something that, like, my family call me super nurse. That's something I always say, like, we make such a difference in the communities that we, you know, provide care to. So please hold on to your license. You might not like it now, you might not like it for the next 5 years, but you always have that to go back to. Never let go of your license.
I agree to an extent, but I'm not going to be as, I guess, as positive, and I'm also going to be a little bit more nuanced. I would say never, because you might find one or two scenarios where it's time to hang it up. And don't feel like that could never be the answer. Don't allow anybody to tell you, because that could lead to hopelessness if it could never possibly be the answer. Right? It could be the answer, but it should be the very last answer that you go to. And the difference, why I say the difference between your license and nursing is you can stop nursing. That's exactly but your license might require you to be like, they might hire you as a experienced nurse to overlook paperwork, and you're never touching.
There's like a whole department that's all they do. Like,
you
might like that. I would hate that. But sometimes you need that nursing knowledge.
You could be working in...
You could work for Joint Commission. You could work for like organizations like ACA and stuff like that want your nursing experience and your nursing license. So you're not... this is something that Dan used to complain about when he was in nursing school. Number one, they always talk about in regard to like day shift, right? Everything is about day shift. Oh, this is going to be having day shift, right? When we know that there are 12-hour shifts, there's 8-hour shifts, there's 10-hour shifts, there's...
Yeah, like every
Monday
scenario is like the night nurse is giving you a report and they messed up this and that. And I was like, well, the first 2 nurses that I knew like on a personal basis were night nurse people. So it's like this nonsense of teaching school as if like, no, not only you destined for bedside, but you're destined to be bedside on day shift.
And that's it, is bedside. Your first job in nursing doesn't even have to be bedside.
Yeah, there's no requirement.
We choose to do bedside, right? But you don't have to. You can go to nursing school and say, you know what? I am going to just use that knowledge I have and get into nursing cybersecurity or some type of IT department. Home health.
I'm gonna do.
You don't have to do
case
bedside
management.
And that can be very restricting to someone that's coming out. And there's people that go to nursing school and they're like, oh, I did my last clinical before they graduate, and they're like, I hate 12-hour shifts. I hate night shift. I hate day shift. I hate bedside. Okay, there's specialties out there.
There's still a job for you.
You can work in a doctor's office. There's some people that do like to work as like medical assistants, but be a nurse. You know, like, and there's some doctor's offices that want to hire nurses instead of medical assistants because they want to be able to have them draw blood and give medications and stuff like that. So look into that. Bedside is not for everyone, and we need bedside nurses, and I want more nurses to be in bedside, because if we don't have enough, that's where we have these nursing shortages, and this is what aids in burnout. If we don't have people at the bedside, you know,
I think that's the only thing that's different about the way we look at nursing. I think the 2 of us might love nursing, but and I don't have no feeling about even saying you might love nursing more than I do, but even if we're not comparing who loves it more, like I think the difference in the way that we love nursing is like I have a little bit more nuance to the fact that like I'm always positive to people that want to be nurses. When I talk to like techs, when I talk to other people that are in nursing school, I never say anything bad about nursing, right? But I won't BS you about like
the reality
of nursing. And the thing is like,
and that's what we want to be able to do in this forum, is to be able to communicate that these are the things, and help people realize that you're not alone when you're going through these like, oh, I'm having these thoughts where I feel like this isn't for me. No, you can have 20 years of nursing and you're like,
and still feel like, yo, I still don't know this, or I forgot this, why did I forget this, or whatever. But like I'm also like, nursing gotta help itself, you know what I mean?
So
like
what I'm gonna say is, we love nursing, but I am like, you know, and maybe there's a sick part of it, is like I'm like, yo, I want to bring other people to nursing. I want to, you know, like, let's do this together. Let's work together.
That, but I want nursing
he wants
to
scream out loud on like a platform and be like, this is the problem. This is how we fix it. And I'm for that, but I'm also like, I want to maintain who we have, right?
Yeah.
But also encourage others to come in. I call them like my politicians sometimes.
Before I stand up for something, right, and put my life on the line, I need you to also put some effort into
out there.
Put some effort worth defending, because, and maybe it's a selfishness, maybe it's arrogance, I don't know what it is, but like, it's like I said, like Lisa is like teammate that's like, yo, all right, we're like 6-0 down, we're losing bad, we're drowning, but let's keep going, we're not giving up. But I am also the type of person that's like,
you're like, no.
Oh wait, hold on. If I stop rowing, this boat gonna stop moving. I'll jump out. I'm good. I'll jump out. I know how to swim. I'll find something else.
So what about your other team members though?
But that's what I'm saying. Like, I feel like that's another thing that's like toxic in nursing, is like people will do this thing where, I remember when I was working this one particular job, and we were a specialty, and there was just a few of us. So whenever you needed to call out, there was this heightened sense of guilt that like, when you call out, the other 3 people are gonna have to take up the slack. And I was like, yo, you know what's not fair to me is that I got to now say to myself, like, hell or high water, unless I'm on my deathbed, I'm not gonna call out because I'm concerned and I feel guilty for my coworkers. But the management and the company didn't seem to care that like that was the case.
So another part of that, like that burnout, is that you need to call out for your mental health day, right? And you're like, well, I know everybody else is struggling at work. You need to take care of yourself.
Yeah,
self-care.
What happened to the management?
Have your manager, like, that should not be a priority for you, right? The hospital system should have agency people or per diem or float pool, whatever, to staff that. Don't think about that. I've been on a floor where what happened when you call out, oh my gosh, how many people call out,
but
and
that's
you feel
toxic.
guilty. That's toxic.
That's toxic because the thing
and then you come back to work and they're like, oh my god, we had so many patients and
that building's
admissions.
not gonna fall down.
Okay.
I literally, that place I worked at had the year that the building was built on it, right? And it had some ancient number on there, right? Some crazy like 1940 something, 1930. Sorry to my old people that are born in that year or whatever, right? But what I realized when I used to walk in and look at the number that the year of the building was built, right? Is the reality is that building and that company have all intentions of being there when I'm in my grave. So my thing is, for me to act like I'm the glue holding up this building, if I call out it's gonna be the end of the world, is like, or like I would even get ish from people when I come back, like, yo, you really called out? I was like, yo, fam, why you mad at me? What you should be mad at is the fact that if one of us call out, there's no coverage. There's no staff to there's nobody doing anything about that.
Yeah, that they're just like, oh, you're gonna deal with it.
That's crazy.
Yeah. And these are things that we're speaking of pre-pandemic.
Yeah.
During pandemic and post-pandemic. Pandemic, we kind of had to struggle, right? And we understood we had to struggle. But post-pandemic, some hospital systems have realized that they can manage with the skeleton crew, right?
Yeah, or they can lean on your guilt to try to fix the problem that's their responsibility. Yeah. And that's what I'm saying. Like, if I'm like, oh wait, so the organization ain't gonna get us a bus to get to this game? Oh, so we not getting the proper rest, we don't have the proper equipment to try to win this game? Well, I ain't gonna waste my effort on trying to win this game. I'm not gonna put my all in and die on the field and they're not even trying to help us out. You are trying to use my guilt or obligation I feel against my coworker, and they know that they can lean on that, they're gonna use that. Yeah. You know, like
and that's also another thing in the burnout is that built of like coworker against coworker. Yeah. Right? That we are a team, but you called out.
You're the enemy, not the fact that they didn't they didn't get restaffing or something.
I called from 12 o'clock. They could have found staffing.
I was at a job one time. We lost a nurse, and then on that rotation, we had 3 nurses, and it was like that for like 2 months until like one day on day shift, I was like, yo, so are y'all ever gonna replace this nurse? Because we make it happen, right? But the problem is, the more and more that we make it happen and we keep fixing it, y'all act like, oh, this is not an issue. They got this. Yeah. While the other shift got 4 nurses doing the same job. Now, if you want to break it down and get me more pay for doing that, then fine. But don't keep on thinking I'm going to make it work because of that.
All right. So I'm going to reel that one in, right? That was on the list of things, right? Is that like not feeling compensated, right? If 7 patients, if you're on a med surg floor, like, I believe safe staffing, I'm going to kind of run through this for people that are like non-nurses or like nursing students, is if it's a med surg floor, 5 to 6 patients, 6 maximum. If it's like a specialty, like a PCU, 2 to 3, 4 maximum. And then if it's like an ICU, 1 to 2. States like California have these mandated in the state laws and stuff like that. So pandemic, they learned they can push you to 7 to 8 patients in med surg. PCUs pushing you to 5 patients. That's not normal, and that's like a normal thing. And I'm like why? Get staff. If you have 7 patients and you're supposed to be getting your 5 to 6 patients in a med surg, right? Paying you more, would that make it better?
That's what I'm saying. I'm gonna walk back that because I was kind of saying that facetiously, like if they were just to say
that
like
that's okay, and it's like,
but you think it is until it's not.
But that's what I'm saying. You're paying me more, and I'm risking my license more and more. The more patients you have, the more responsibility you have, and the more you're stretching yourself. Simultaneously, right? Like I said, I don't know about anybody else, but me, I work hard in nursing school to pass that, okay? I did it in a year. So I work hard. I refuse to lose my license and have to go sit in front of no board
like even
and
right
explain
now,
anything.
2 really sick patients, then have 5 medium sick patients, because that's 5 different people.
5 mouths that you're giving medications to. That's 5
people that gotta use the bathroom.
Labs.
That's 5 people that I could mix up with 4 other people. That's, you know, when
Oh,
I got
this
1 or
patient
2,
fell while
I know
I was over there
I have
with
a
this
man
patient.
and a woman. But then if I have 5 patients, that's like, all right, wait, which one of them did I give this to? Or who did they order this for? Wait, am I mixing up this girl and that girl? Or am I looking at the wrong profile when I walk in there? I know I'm on this and that and whatever. So as much as I facetiously said, like, yo, am I getting paid more?
But
it's
I like
not just about the pay
I like
more.
that you said it, because there are people that are okay with that. And that's what leads to the burnout, is that you're like, well, they pay me. And you keep pushing and you keep pushing until you reach a point where you're like, I'm getting paid more, but I am risking everything.
It ain't worth it.
It's not worth it.
It's not even just the risk. It's just the management of a job that was not intended to be done by one person.
Let
is
me
now
tell you,
being
one
split
time
up in.
I had this,
you know,
this nurse manager, left nursing school at like 20 and like retired on this floor. And she said, oh, when we started at night, we had 10 patients. Like, she'd be so proud. I've heard her say this story multiple times. So one morning she came and she made this comment again or whatever. And I said to her, I said, how many medications were you giving to those patients? Oh, at night, maybe 1 medication, 2 medication. And then, you know, in the morning, you clean them up and that's it. You have 6 patients, right?
Yeah, people got to stop doing that.
You giving them
man.
7 medications, hypertension medications, diabetic medications. You giving antibiotics. You doing wound care. Mind blown. On 6 patients,
this leans
too
into
much.
something that even non-nurses can relate to, because this is that boomer disconnect that I'm talking about. And I'm not just talking about boomers specifically, but we use that because this is the big divide between like the boomer generation as they age into retirement now, and them like, back in my day we did this and this, and I'm like, there's this huge
hospital for 40
disconnect
years.
back in my day and the memory of something and how something is now, right? So for example, what was it worth back then? Like when you're like, oh, we had 10 patients. Yo, that sounds insane, right? But what was charting like, right? What were they expecting to? Yeah,
that's it. Check.
Well, what were they expecting you to do?
Yeah.
Were you ticking a box, or were you have this long list of things they expect you to put in the computer, and it was time itemizing?
You ever had paper charting? You ever something?
Yeah, I did. Remember they had it at long-term care. There's a difference between that and like this itemized, like they can see that you did the vitals
at this time
at 4 and it's 2 hours behind time frame or half an hour behind, and why didn't you do the vitals?
Like,
paper charting was tedious, but paper charting and this like
computer
computer charting,
I'll take paper charting any day.
Is 2 different things. You know, like glove and wear a mask and do all this kind of stuff was different from back in the pre-AIDS when like people were starting IVs with no gloves and doing all kind of stuff. The game has changed, so you need to evaluate.
So I think that's
this
also
memory
the other thing
of
is
what
that
used to be.
Don't allow other people to hold on to this, like, you know, Florence Nightingale beautiful nursing and make you feel little by expressing the fact that you're like, yo,
and as older nurses stop doing that. One thing I've learned is as I'm getting to become this older generation, I can't watch these young people, even if they're making mistakes or they're doing young people things, and go like, oh, that wasn't happening in my generation. You sound like the same people that used to chastise you. You're now turning into those people. Be aware of that. Beware of how annoying it used to sound to hear. Like,
the thing is, the reality
back in my day, they did things perfectly.
The reality is, 15 years ago, like I said, almost 15 years now I've been a nurse. Nursing has changed a lot, and I'm aware of that. And I'm like, for the next generation, I'm like, oh, I'll tell you what I went through because it was better back then. You know, like there were this and this. You can do this and this.
Yeah, subjectively.
So, right? In my opinion, right? So when I see that, I'm like, but like the boomers make it out to seem like, oh, well, I retired from nursing and nursing was this and that. I'm like, yo, why you can't acknowledge that nursing is different? Like, that's frustrating.
But it's the same argument that people have when they compare, like, in sports. They compare somebody that played like 40 years ago. I'm like, yo, the ball has changed. The ball is lighter. Defenders are faster. Yeah, they're more physical back then, but that physical way of doing things might not work today. That person that you're like, oh, they were used to playing more rough and tough. Yeah, but they might not be used to the speed of the game now. they might not be able to know how to handle somebody who's not going to be as physical with them, because that might have been part of their game. So the same thing with nursing. You're like, oh, well, we had more. Yeah, but you didn't have as much level of scrutiny. So you have to see that there's a trade-off with certain things that have changed over time. And also, like, there's less loyalty. Like, you know, like, I might be making more money than you did back in the 80s when you started, but your dollar was worth more than mine. So if you do the equivalent for inflation and you see what I can buy compared to you, it doesn't feel like it's worth the same thing to me. Don't wonder why after 2 years I'm like, you gonna leave that job too? Yo, I worked at that place for 20 years. Well, maybe they're not doing anything to try to keep me for 20 years.
That is definitely something that, like, for the next generation is to just be aware of, like, the options that you have. Be aware of your
people. Stop wondering why it's always the people. Maybe it's the institution. Like, is it all of that generation that's just a bunch of really weird, spoiled people? So I'm not talking about just boomers. Don't become that. Like, sometimes you gotta wonder, like, wait, why was it that I was able to work 15 years at somewhere and now they can't keep a nurse for more than 6 months? Why is it? Or is that system has changed so much over time that it's unrecognizable and it's causing all of these people to have that reaction?
But not everybody has that self-awareness to think about, like, that was my time there, that was my experience, that was, you know, oh, when I was on that floor, that was that nurse manager. It's different. So, like, be aware of that when you are in
might
nursing.
Be from
like,
that school, but like, by the time your kid is ready to go to that school, that school might not be that good at that anymore.
So I hope you gained a lot from this, because I know I gained a lot from kind of venting about my past history with burnout, because Dan wasn't present for some of it. I definitely hope that this is something that can bring a discussion with you and your family members and your co-workers and all that stuff, because it's important that we do take the time to discuss this and express ourselves, because burnout can feel lonely, but it's not.
It shouldn't. Because it is happening everywhere and it's normal. And again, to reiterate the disclaimer that I said, anything that sounds familiar was altered and does not necessarily reflect on our current jobs, and also might just sound familiar to you because maybe similar scenarios has happened
to you
but
as well.
I'm not gonna name, you know, like ABC hospital that I worked at in this year in that time frame, because that is unimportant. The moral behind the story is more important than the exact moment that it happened or the exact patient and all of that. So
comment below if you've experienced burnout or if you're going through burnout and things that you kind of want to add to the discussion below. We are asking for more engagement in the comments about this, and I think, you know, like Dan is saying, that we are expecting this to kind of hit a nerve.
It's going to hit a little
because, and we'll continue this. We might want to revisit burnout again at another time, but we spoke about a bunch of other things, but burnout, I think, was the heaviest part of it all, because again, it's something that we're both experiencing or have experienced, and we continue to kind of work through it.
So cheers to you and yours, and until the next time we're on our BS.
Peace, love, and happiness, guys. Bye. You know what? Let's get into. I have another topic.
You will always be my inspiration.